So recently I've been getting a lot of questions about Kaiganing the SSM units and how exactly to go about them, because they're definitely more difficult to Kaigan than standard farmable units, because their hard quests are pretty rare to come up and they aren't featured in banners too often, and just other issues with them being semi-limited characters. Um, they're definitely worth Kaiganing if you can get them done, but that's sometimes easier said than done. So I'm just going to go over a couple things here real quick, so maybe you could make a better decision on how you want to handle Kaiganing these units. So first I'm going to do a quick overview of Zane here. So as you can see, I have my Zane at 520. It's not because I can't raise his gate 3 up a little bit, or because I can't get his shards to max out his gate 2, but rather he operates pretty well at 520, which, what would that be, 80, 15, so 95 frags in order to get him to where I have him right now, and he's done just fine for me up to the highest level of content in Japan. So honestly, a 520 Zane is very usable. Gate 2 gives him an extra 25% HP if I remember correctly, which helps his bulk. He is a little bit squishy for me, but he's not so squishy that he just falls over like a mage or an archer would. And his gate 3 has a really good leader skill on it. If you can get it up, it's 20% HP, 20 attack, and 30 light, which helps Zane run with a mixed damage team, so you could run attack and magic on the same team. But honestly, Aisha does the same thing, more or less, just with magic, and she's farmable. And Miyadiki is also has a similar leader skill, if I remember correctly. Except hers has count reduction on it, so I actually kind of like hers more. I do think Zane is a good unit to Kaigan, but as you can see up here with my gear, he has his own Nenso, which is important. He's using the Chloe VCR, or Vision Clear reward, the Cannon VCR, and his own VCR. So he requires 3 different Nensos to really reach his optimal setup. So while he might not need as many frags as other units, he is going to need a lot of Nensos in order to be optimal. Not that he absolutely has to have the Cannon VCR. You could just opt for regen armor instead, which is what I normally do because I have the Cannon VCR on Cannon and I run them in the same team. You really do want the Chloe sword, and you can use the SSM armband instead of his own, or you could use a speed item or a Wonder Chronos. It doesn't matter so much what goes in that last slot. It's just for speed and damage. This has 12 speed and 5 slash damage. So that's pretty much Zane right there. He needs a lot of VCRs if he wants to be the best he can be, but he doesn't need as many frags as the other units do. So next I'm going to go to Moschini. Moschini, he kind of has 2 tiers of being run. His pre-Nenso setup and his post-Nenso setup. In his pre-Nenso setup, he always has to run Teddy, and that's to deal with his really bad jewel gain. But once you get his VCR and his Nenso, he gains the ability to drain jewels, and it gives him a little passive jewel gain as well. So it's not as important. I still generally run it. But Moschini does want his VCR, he does want his Nenso, and Moschini's going to want a 5-5-4 setup. So his second gate gives him a lot of extra attack. I think it's 25%. And you want to raise his gate 3 to at least 4 for the extra 12 evade. I don't think his leader skill is worth the maxing of gate 5. But it is another 3 evade, and I suppose if you're a whale it might be worth. Unfortunately, I don't have enough frags to finish my Moschini at the moment, because I instead focused on my Joris and my Ultima. So Joris has her own Nenso, has her own VCR, which is what this is, and that's initial jewels and speed, and those other 2 are charm and charm resistance. Her actual Nenso itself is super important because it has fire exploit on it, and that's what the 23 up here is. As you get more Joris Nensos and fuse them together, that goes higher and higher, and that extra fire exploit will apply to all of the Lustberg units you have. So any Lustberg unit that uses a water skill on a fire enemy is going to get like an extra 23% damage or something. Or maybe not 23% damage, I forget the exact calculation, but it's more damage, and it's good. And she gets this extra attack down here, the 48 attack and the 101 dex. Well, I don't think she even uses dex in her damage formula. And this one right here is 7 fire resistance to SSM units. The way I run my Joris is with regen armor, her VCR, and the DG armband, which is what this is, because this will give her more speed on top of what she already has. I think it's 10%, which ends up putting her at about 220 speed when all things are said and done. Joris is going to want 555. Mine's only 554. The reason you want 555 is because her leader skill is 20% HP, 30% attack, and 20% water, which is one of the best water lead skills in the game. Shayna actually has the exact same leader skill though, so if you want to, you could go 554 on Joris and go 555 on Shayna, and you can still use the same leader skill. It's just Shayna's job and Joris's job kind of overlap a little, where they want to do really high single target damage to just one unit at a time. Joris has a couple better AoE options. Well, no, she has one AoE option, but I think Joris does the job better. And she's an evade meme unit. She gets like 40 or 50 evade, which means she isn't going to take as much damage. And I think she's all around a better unit than Shayna is. But Shayna is kind of like poor man's Joris, and she's not as important maybe as some other units would be because of that. Although she's still top tier. Ultima, he kind of has his own role because he's extremely versatile. You can either run his unique job for the extra status and instacasts, or you can run his Sage for more damage. His important Nenso is a 4-star, unlike the other units, and it gives him, as you can see, 480 HP, that's 10 extra joules and 13 speed, and the other stat over here is 10 hit rate, which helps combat his absurdly low dex. And I also like to put the Fiona VCR on him for an additional 20 hit rate and 10 magic damage modifier. He uses his own staff, obviously, and once again, I like to use the regen armor on him. Recently, he did get his own event Nenso with a Scarf VCR on it, and all around, that Nenso is probably better for him, especially damage-wise. But his 4-star is incredibly good. It's probably the best 4-star Nenso in the game in terms of the stats it gives the units it benefits, which makes him a lot easier to build than, say, the other DG units. But, once again, you're going to want 553 or 555 on this character. His leader skill is 40% HP, 20% magic, and 10% count reduction, which is not cast time, and makes it an extremely valuable leader skill. Even if he's running with a physical attack team behind him, they get the benefits of that decreased count, and their turns come earlier and their skills will cast faster. So, once again, a top tier unit. You're going to need a lot of frags in order to max him out, but top tier. So, basically what this all boils down to is these units are great, but are going to require a lot of time and investment. The main difference that I've found between Global and Japan in terms of our ability to max these units is the units are in our general pool. So the event doesn't have to be running for us to pull things like Zane and Joris, although Global will likely get there eventually. The other thing we have are what we call the 5k gem boxes, and for New Year's, Global actually just got one. I didn't actually check what's in it, but I can show you what's in ours. So we get a 25 elemental frag unit, or elemental frag selector, a 50 unit selector, a 50 shard unit selector, a unit pick ticket, and it also comes with a 4-star gear ticket. And in our last box, we actually got a Nenso ticket and some job enchant tickets, but those are not normal. So to give you an idea of what our shard pick tickets look like, it has a bunch of some of these more limited units. This one has some Vita units in it. Not all of them have Vita units in it. But this is basically how we Kaigan our more limited units in Japan. We get the 5K box, and we use that. If Global starts putting out these 5K boxes more often, I definitely think it's worth sharding your DG units up to 85 so you can start collecting shards for their Kaigan. Because when they get Kaigans, they will be the dominating factor in their element. Or at least among the top tier and run on most teams. This was a really hastily thrown together video because I keep hearing questions about is it worth fragging my unit to 85 in order to prepare for their Kaigans? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, if you have a method of obtaining the frags after 85 in order to do the Kaigan. Remember that most of these units are going to want 5 on the gate 1 and 2, which is a total of 180 extra frags. And a lot of them are going to want somewhere between 3 to 5 on gate 3, which is going to be an additional 30 to 90 frags. So they're very resource intensive, but the payoff on these units can be quite ludicrous. Moschini, top tier dark unit. Joris, top tier water unit. Ultima, top tier water unit. And Zane, top tier light unit. There's not really that much else to say on these units right now, other than if you're a whale, it's definitely worth. If you're a dolphin, it might be worth. And if you're free to play, I would advise to sit back and watch what happens for now. If you're free to play, I would not jump the gun on these units right now. We really don't know how the global exclusive units are going to be handled. The reason that I'm concerned about the global exclusive units is they haven't really had great banners. And even if you got the unit from the banners, there's really no good way at the moment to get their unit shards. And you can't use elemental shards in the Kaigan screen. It has to be the unit shards. So unless global exclusive units get a way to get their unit shards, they're going to be absolutely worthless as Kaigan characters outside the Space Whales, because no one's going to have the shards in order to Kaigan them. So, I apologize for the kind of unstructured format here. I was just trying to answer a couple questions regarding the Kaiganing of the DG units, and if you have any other questions, just throw them in the comments and I can answer them. It's probably better to just do that anyways. I'm going to probably do a unit review on Spica next, so I'll probably get that up either today or tomorrow. Thank you.